$84 trillion is set to change hands over the next 20 years. Whether you're passing it down or inheriting it, the decisions you make today will shape your family's financial future for generations. Welcome to the Great Wealth Transfer, where David Pulcini, CFP, guides you through the strategies, insights, and pitfalls of navigating one of the largest financial shifts in history. What you don't know could redefine your legacy.
You saved $2 million for retirement. You did everything right. You invested. You didn't panic when everybody else was. So why does your retirement plan still say that you're short? You're falling short in the later years, or it feels like you might be. And that feeling, that nagging doubt might be driving you crazy about retiring, right? And that is the fear that not many people talk about, is not running out of money now, but running out of money later. And that's what we're going to unpack today. Welcome back to the Retire Without Regret series. It's a series inside of the Great Wealth Transfer. I'm Dave Pulcini, a CFP fiduciary financial advisor, and I want to guide you through this retirement transition process. So this show is built for people over 55 years old with more than $1 million saved, and the folks that need help with those types of issues that they're going to run into. If you want to avoid the most common and the most costly retirement mistakes, you're in the right place. So let me start with this. Let's just give a story. Let's talk about Kevin and Sarah. They're both 64 years old. They've saved just over $2.2 million, and that's mostly in 401ks and IRAs, plus a brokerage account, and they have a paid off home. Their Social Security benefits will be about $42,000 per year combined, okay? So they came into our office feeling pretty good. And when we have a meeting, we start each first meeting with one simple question, and it's this: what made you reach out to us at this point, okay? And Kevin said, hey, I think we're in great shape. I just want to double check that is true, okay? So we ran the numbers. We used a very conservative investment growth model. We use 3% inflation, and then you have to add in taxes and healthcare and long-term care. Okay, so obviously they're awaiting the result, and their plan showed a shortfall starting at around age 82. And Sarah said, how is that even possible? We've done everything right. And that is why I wanted to do this episode, because that reaction is really common. And in many ways, they had done everything right, but this is where it gets real, because saving is only step one. It's what you do with those savings that's what determines whether you'll retire without regret, right? Or run out of money in your 80s or 90s or whenever it might be, which typically would be the worst time to start having a shortfall, right? So here's what we uncovered and what might be hiding in your plan too, along again with action items if you're trying to do this yourself. For them, number one, inflation was a silent killer, we'll call it. Kevin and Sarah needed $9,000 a month today. And we want to break that down monthly. How much are you spending? And I say this a lot. How much do you spend every month? Then where is it going to come from? Okay, so they needed $9,000 today, but at just 3% inflation, which is not out of line, that's about $13,000 a month by the time they're age 85, okay? They weren't spending any more money, and as everybody knows, it just costs more, okay? If you are doing this yourself, or what we want to do, use realistic inflation. We've seen this play out time and time again where folks are using a low number just to make their plan look good. We don't want it to look good. We want it to be more accurate, right? So use 3% or higher in every projection. And when we're running a plan, we try to make it, I'll call it conservative. And what I mean by that is we're going to use lower investment returns, maybe higher taxes, inflation being high, maybe you spending more money than you're actually spending. And if it works out in all of those cases, typically the plan looks pretty good, right? So we want to almost show a worst case scenario and then back into it. And if we're good with the worst case, we're probably going to be good with what really happens, okay? Number two for them, they had too much in pre-tax accounts. And this is really common. I've talked about this a lot. Almost all of their money was in IRAs and 401ks. All right, so that 2.2 million, remember that's pre-tax, is actually closer to 1.6 million after taxes. Now, many of you are saying, how can they not live on that? That's all relative, okay? They have 1.6 million plus their income, but the fix is, if you're doing this yourself, again, or when we're doing it, we need to know the after-tax retirement number, okay? It's not just what you've saved, it's, again, you've all heard this, it's what you keep, okay? And then number 3 here, just to keep moving, Social Security timing created a gap. They wanted to delay Social Security until age 70, which many times is a great idea in theory, but they were retiring at 64 years old, which meant 6 years of no guaranteed income. Okay, they didn't have any pensions. They were draining their accounts too fast in the early years to let it grow. Okay, so what we want to do, or your fix here, is we need to map the income year by year and then stress test that retirement before Social Security kicks in, and then make the decision, when should we take our Social Security if that is an important part of our retirement, right? And then their portfolio was too conservative. Again, I see this all the time. They were about 80% in bonds with very little growth allocation, meaning in the stocks or other growth tools. I'm not going to get into that right now, but their money needed to last about 30 plus years, right? So inflation plus taxes plus withdrawals is trouble unless you are growing your investment. And I'll tell you guys, over the years, I constantly hear this, and this might sound like you. Hey, Dave, I'm retiring in whatever, 3 years, 1 year, 5 years. I'm retiring soon, some number that you deem close, right? I'm going to move all of my investments to conservative. I need to be more safe. All right. If that sounds familiar, what I want to talk about or ask you is this. If you have X in retirement, I guess the number almost doesn't matter, but let's say it's $2 million in this case. Are you going to retire at 65 and spend it all immediately? Probably not, right? So your time horizon, or when you actually need this money, is not the day you retire. It's over the next 30 years. Folks tend to anchor on that retirement date like it's the end and the final date for our investments. It's usually not even close, right? We want that money to work for you and to still grow over the next 20, 30, 40 years throughout your retirement, okay? So the fix for this is design a portfolio that supports income and outpaces inflation, not just one that avoids volatility. And I understand the ups and the downs, and we don't want a big drop before retirement, but that should all be built into a plan, okay? Last thing here, healthcare costs were underestimated. They were using old numbers, and I have run into this. I think people are more aware of this today than ever before, just because the numbers are staggering, I guess. But they were using only $350 a month per person when they were doing their plan for healthcare, which would be great if you have a company benefit or something else. But in reality, long-term care is going to cost them about $400,000 or more. I guess it depends on how long they live, but we have to plan for the longevity, right? It's going to cost a lot of money. So we want to model $7,000 to $12,000 per year per person, again, being conservative, and consider protection strategies for long-term care, which is a different thing, but we want to at least get the costs right, okay? So for them, just a few key shifts that could be made. Redirected savings from pre-tax to Roth and brokerage. Okay, so we took some of that pre-tax money and made it after tax. We built a conversion plan for years that there may be low income. Okay, so if it makes sense to do a conversion during a certain low income year, we want to build that in. We delayed one spouse's Social Security, but not both. That made a huge difference. Rebalance their investments to support their growth and income. I'm going through this in my head as I talk about it. I literally go through the 6 points of financial planning in my head. So, and then increase future healthcare assumptions. When all of that was done, that one-page summary of action items changed everything for them, okay? They left knowing where they stood and what to do about it, okay? And that's what real planning does. And in many cases, a lot of times, if somebody just goes and gets a part-time job making $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, that can change everything too. So we're not just typically banking on investments. Maybe we go do something else. Most folks don't want to sit around and do nothing when they retire, most of the time. Or if they do, they get bored quickly. Some people say they do, and then they retire, and within 2 weeks, they can't wait to get out of the house, right? So I want to move on to a question that actually, I get these a lot, and I want to tie these into these episodes, but this one is just perfect, and it sounds like it's made up because of this episode, but it was literally a message that I got. Dave, I retired with $2.1 million. I'm spending around $100,000 a year. We tried to run projections, and I see red numbers starting at age 85, that's how I know they really did it, by the way. When you do a retirement plan, the shortfall turns into red, and it's almost scary looking, right? And Debbie, that's you. You're asking, what am I missing? So it's a great question. Again, you're not alone. We run into this all the time. And what you're missing likely is not one thing. It's not like, hey, just change your investments too aggressive or spend less, right? It's probably a combination of, I'll call them small leaks in the bucket, but I'm going to go right back to the case we just talked about with Kevin and Sarah. You probably have too much in pre-tax accounts, okay? It might make some sense to start saving after tax. How are we taking money out, right? You might be pulling from the wrong bucket first. Where are we taking that money from with taxes in mind and investments in mind? You're probably also underestimating inflation in healthcare or taxes, or all three, right? Or some combination of that. Or your growth rate might not be strong enough to support 30 years. So again, Debbie asked the question, this doesn't mean you failed. It means the system you used to run projections either wasn't deep enough or it didn't ask you the right questions. So here's what I would recommend is to, number one, run a tax diversification analysis. That sounds really complicated, but basically how much of your savings is actually spendable after tax? All right. You have a big savings pre-tax. How much is it actually worth to you? Which, by the way, is hard to estimate because we don't know where future tax rates are going to be, right? Our tax brackets. So that is something that on an ongoing basis we need to update, monitor. All right. Number two, to fill that retirement income gap, we need to design the withdrawal strategy before you retire, not after. Where are we going to take it from? What's it going to look like? Okay. And then number three, adjust Social Security based on your timeline. The best claiming strategy is personal. It's not generic. That's why it's different for everybody. So we need to coordinate that with your withdrawal plan. So if you have $2 million saved and you still see a gap, it doesn't mean you've failed. And I'm using 2 million because these are real folks that have asked me this, but it just means that your plan needs attention. So, and again, remember, it's about using what you've saved intentionally, okay, instead of just guessing, right? In our next episode, now I'm going to do this. I'm going to change this. We're going to break it down. Where do we take our retirement income from first? Which type of account do we take from? Okay, we're going to cover IRAs, 401ks, the 403bs, the Roth, brokerage accounts, and more. And I'll do another real world example to show you guys how it works. But until then, make it a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Great Wealth Transfer Podcast. If this podcast resonates with you, reach out to 6 Point Financial Partners at 585-485-6048 or email dpulcini at 6pointfp.com.
Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. All investing involves risk, including loss of principal. Results will vary. Past performance is no indication of future results or success. Market conditions change continuously. Information here is provided in part by third-party sources. These sources are generally deemed to be reliable. However, neither 6 Point Financial Partners, Private Client Services, nor RFG Advisory guarantee the accuracy of third-party sources. The views expressed here are those of 6 Point Financial Partners. They do not necessarily represent those of Private Client Services, RFG Advisory, their employees, or their clients. This commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by 6 Point Financial Partners or RFG Advisory, or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change at any time without notice. Securities offered by registered representatives through Private Client Services. Member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory LLC, RFG Advisory, or RFG. A registered investment advisor. Private Client Services, 6 Point Financial Partners, and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place.